These, however, are all examples of when the national government can negate or overrule an action by the state government. Can the reverse also be true? Can the state overrule or ignore an action by the national government? Well, this is something that always keeps coming up throughout history. There are always politicians that try it, and that there are always politicians that try it, and they always fail. This is a process called nullification. This is where a state says that it can ignore a law passed at the national level because the state believes it is unconstitutional. It's important to keep in mind, however, that this is a political concept. To date, it has not been recognized as a legal or a constitutional concept. Now, if I were in person, I would show you this video from the Colbert Report, which is the show that the comedian Stephen Colbert hosted before he was on The Late Show. But I am going to point out to you highlights from a particular episode in which he interviewed a constitutional lawyer in response to what was then actions and remarks by state level officials stating that they were going to ignore executive orders made by President Barack Obama that were made and issued in order to further gun control. Things such as looking at mental health and other ways to look into gun regulation. And Stephen Colbert asked the constitutional lawyer seated on the left, there's this word being tossed around in all these states saying, we're not going to obey the federal government. And they're calling it nullification. Is this a new legal technology that I don't know about? And his guest assures him that this is nothing new. It's something that has been tried throughout history, and it always fails. Stephen Colbert asks where the federal government gets off telling the states what they can and cannot do. To which his guest replies, Article 6, the Supremacy Clause, which states that the national government, the Constitution, is the supreme law of the land, and the states can't merely ignore it. Stephen Colbert responds, so what does this mean? Are we going to end up seeing federal marshals making sure that people are following executive orders? Stephen Colbert is concerned that if states were to simply ignore national authority, we might see federal troops marching onto state capitals. Now, that might sound like a bit of an exaggeration, but Stephen Colbert is not pulling that from nowhere. If you've ever taken a US history course, which is not required for this class, you may be familiar with this image. The child is Ruby Bridges, and she's being escorted by federal marshals into an elementary school which had recently been ordered to integrate. The governor of the state of Arkansas had ordered schools to ignore Supreme Court rulings that mandated that schools allow children in regardless of their race. And the president ultimately had to send in federal marshals to escort Ruby Bridges into the schools. And so when I tell you that the rights and privileges that you enjoy can depend on where you live, this is not an exaggeration. Historically, this has proven to be true, and there are instances and areas in modern day life where this is also true.